In early 2007, 4Kids was gearing up for a second season of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Fast Forward, which would have continued exploring the lives of Baxter and Shredder and introduced a new character, Space Usagi. However, the release of a new TMNT movie that year made Playmates question the franchise's direction, leading them to cut short the Turtles' future escapades to better align with the CGI film. But what were the plans for that scrap second season? I'll explore that in this video. Since there's not much visual material, think of this more as a podcast, with visuals popping up occasionally. I'll let you know when to look with this sound, and when you should definitely look at the screen. The first details about the cancelled second season came from a list of 10 episode titles released on the Technodrome forums in 2009. This list, posted by someone who worked on the show, offered fans their initial peek at what could have been, sparking a flurry of speculation within the TMNT community. The first episode was Master Fighter 2105, and we know more about this one because a full animatic with voices was published on the 4Kids website as an unlockable download in 2009. Although the original animatic is now lost, it has been re-uploaded with music to YouTube by user TheSkeletonMan939. In the plot, Viral would have finally finished recompiling herself within Serling. Upon witnessing a simulation of Mikey's martial arts hero, Master Fighter, she would have realized that he was her ideal opportunity to locate the power source necessary to enhance her strength significantly. While the Turtles would have been preoccupied with the rogue Master Fighter, Cody and Serling would have fallen victim to Viral in the cyberspace. Master Fighter would have retrieved the power source for Viral, but would have been deceived by Master Splinter into destroying it, inadvertently assisting Cody, Serling, and the Turtles in their cyberspace battle against Viral. Ultimately, Master Splinter and Master Fighter would have joined forces to vanquish Viral. In the conclusion, Donnie would have created a virtual realm for this digital version of Master Fighter to inhabit. Initially, Mikey and he would have confronted a digital kaiju. During the episode drafts, Peter Laird suggested that the Turtles could have created a game-based version of the Ancient One to take on Master Fighter. Another idea that didn't make it into the quote-unquote final version was Viral's potential to control humans with the new power source. Peter objected to this idea, as it seemed like an easy way out for the writers. Given that nearly all the characters would have ended up in cyberspace, this plot element would have become redundant. The second episode in the list, Something Wicked, shares its name with a 7th season episode, with both installments featuring the Turtles learning about the return of the Shredder. In this story, a Triceraton mining vessel would have landed on the icy asteroid known as Morgul Tal, where Shirel had been sentenced to an isolated, frozen existence at the end of Season 3. Upon arrival, Shirel would have overtaken a Triceraton soldier. After assuming control of the soldier, akin to a facehugger, Shredder would have quickly seized the spaceship and enslaved its crew. He would have also created a new android body for himself, resembling a Triceraton. The Trichetatron would then have set a course for the Milky Way galaxy, targeting Manhattan to exact his revenge on the Turtles. On the other hand, the Turtles would have been alerted to the impending threat by Captain Mortu and Leatherhead. Notably, Leatherhead had spent the last century attempting to transfer his mind into an Utron body, to finally assimilate with his people. A subplot Peter Laird found too self-loathing, and asked the writers to remove it from the script. Due to the high density of ore on board the mining vessel, which interfered with the transmat beams, teletransportation there would have been impossible. The Turtles, accompanied by Mortu, would have embarked on a mission to confront the vessel and battle the new Shredder. Ultimately, the Trichredatron would have utilized a transmat device to return to Earth. The Turtles would have also managed to return to Earth just in time before the vessel's destruction. The next episode, Bounty Huntin', would have centered on Torben Zix, an intergalactic mercenary whom the Turtles had previously encountered. They would have attempted repeatedly to rescue Torben Zix from the clutches of Boss Zuko. However, they would have eventually discovered that Zuko and Zix were colluding to amass and divide millions of credits from the bounties on Zix's head. Upon realizing they'd been deceived, the Turtles would have planned to teach both Zix and Zuko a lesson with the assistance of President Bishop. The next episode, Turtles Everywhere, which would have shared its title with a Fred Wolf episode, was set to reintroduce Darius Dunn. Having lost everything, Dunn would have decided to create mech turtles, and to test them, he sent them against the Dark Turtles, the clones of the turtles he'd created during the 6th season. In a desperate turn of events, the Dark Turtles would have sought help from the Turtles. By teaming up against the mech turtles, the Dark Turtles would have ultimately learned about honor and sacrifice, inspired by the example set by the Turtles. These mech turtles would have eventually merged into one, forming a super mech. The Turtles would have found a way to melt the super mech in lava, although some of it would have survived and assimilated Darius Dunn. During this episode, Donnie and Cody would have investigated why the Turtles were starting to phase in and out of existence. Cody would have uncovered a theory suggesting a cosmic expiration date on matter that crosses over the space-time continuum. The following episode, Law and Disorder, would have marked the return of Jammerhead, who would have reprogrammed Constable Biggles to target the Turtles, Cody, and O'Neill Tech with the aid of the entire police force. This scenario would have compelled the Turtles to confront both the police and the Street Phantoms, striving to restore Biggles to his normal state. The next episode, titled The Devil and Dr. Stockman, would have followed up on Head of State, the episode where Baxter had reformed. A few storyboards for this episode were even available online. In this installment, Baxter, now in a new body provided by President Bishop, would have been ready to truly redeem himself. He would have invited Cody and the Turtles to an intergalactic science expo. However, the Shredder would have attacked their ship, forcing them all to crash land on a hostile planet, like prey to their predator, the Shredder. The episode would have served as a final temptation for Baxter to either return to serving the Shredder or continue on his path of redemption. They probably returned home just fine, because the next episode was The Incredible Shrinking Serling, not to be confused with the 7th season episode, even though it has pretty much the same plot. Possibly due to the Turtles phasing in and out of existence, Cody and the Turtles would have intensified their efforts to return to their own time. While experimenting with the time window, they would have inadvertently shrunk Serling to the size of an action figure and sent him back to the past, when the Turtles were toddlers. In this unlikely scenario, Serling would have found a way to assist the Turtles and survive the experience. The episode titled Space Usagi, or A Question of Honor, would have introduced Space Usagi into the 2003 universe, as the title suggests. Like in the comic books that inspired it, this character would have been an Usagi from another dimension and a descendant of the Miyamoto Usagi they already knew. In this plot, Darius Dunn, now transformed into Mech Darius, would have returned. He would have dispatched the Mech Turtles to pursue the Turtles, Cody, and Usagi. The next episode, titled City Under Siege, or Con Space, should not be confused with the 7th season episode of the same name. It would have featured the already established villain known as Triple Threat, a 3-headed professional wrestler. Triple Threat was being deported from Earth when he would have hijacked the ship and rallied all the convicts to join him on a crime spree. The Turtles would have gotten involved, and it would have been a Turtle Titan episode. That is, Michelangelo's superhero identity. The season finale, Homeward Bound, would have been a 2-part episode. Initially, the draft suggested that Cody was the one phasing in and out of existence, and that he would have found himself in 2007, inadvertently aiding the Turtles in their return to their own time. However, it was ultimately clarified across various drafts that it was the Turtles themselves who urgently needed to return to their own time, as they were the ones phasing in and out. Whatever the case was, it seems like Cody would have ended up in the present. This time-traveling experiment would have been jeopardized by the Tri-Shreddertron and his minions. The episode would have also featured the Mech Turtles, Mech Darius, Space Usagi, Leatherhead, and the Utroms, with the now-functioning time window as the villain's primary target. The Turtles would have received additional assistance from the Dark Turtles, who would technically become the future versions of the Turtles following this episode. Much information remains missing, but it's believed that Cody would have initially ended up in the past and played a crucial role in creating a time beacon to facilitate the Turtles' return. Ultimately, the Tri-Shreddertron would have been defeated, and Cody and Serling would have remained in 2007. This outcome was something Peter Laird resisted, as he preferred a return to the pre-fast-forward status quo. At one point, Peter and Lloyd Goldfine discussed a potential plot where a villain would try to prevent April and Casey from marrying and having children, thereby preventing Cody's birth. This scenario would have offered an explanation for Cody's phasing issues, although a simpler explanation might be that Cody's existence was tied to the Turtles' presence in their own time. In any case, story-wise, it would have made sense for that villain to have been Darius. In the Ultimate Visual History book by Andrew Farago, a storyboard penciled by veteran animator Will Munoz hinted at a scene where Slash, the evil turtle, was fighting Splinter. Initially, this storyboard led me to believe it was from a missing episode of Season 7. However, since Will also worked on the Turtles Forever movie, it's become clear that this depiction of Slash was actually Hun. After the cancellation of Fast Forward Season 2 and before the beginning of Back to the Sewer, various concepts and sub-brandings were discussed. The first concept, pitched by 4Kids and codenamed Superworld, was ultimately rejected by Peter Laird. I couldn't find anything about this concept other than some rumors that it had something to do with some card game the Turtles would have used. If you have any information about this pitch, let me know in the comments. The second pitch, codenamed TMNT Overload, would have occurred during the Turtles' trip back to the present. This scenario would have involved the Turtles dragging their younger selves to 2008, facing either the Cyber Shredder or Viral, who would have resided in the World Wide Web. Though Peter Laird approved this idea, Playmates rejected it, believing children would have been confused by having two versions of each turtle and concerned that kid turtles wouldn't be very inspiring for young viewers. Peter Laird had reservations as well. He considered that having 8 turtles was a similar problem to the 5th turtle concept that he'd always wanted to avoid. By there being more than 4 turtles, they would lose their uniqueness. Playmates then made their pitch for Ultimate TMNT, a project that would have been a continuity reboot, blending the 2003 series, the live-action trilogy, the 1987 series, the Archie comic series, and presumably the aesthetics of the 2007 movies. In the words of Mirage staffer and freelance writer for the TV series, Steve Murphy, it would have brought the TV and CGI movie universes together, with a creative focus on tweaking the original cartoon series, upping the humor level of the current series, while still trying to walk the grungy streets of the original comics and 2007 movie. This version would have reintroduced characters such as Usagi Yojimbo, Tattoo, Mondo Gecko, and the Hamato Yoshi version of Splinter, alongside villains like the Shredder, Mutagen Man, now called Ruin, the Rat King, Slash, and Wingnut and Screwloose. The Turtles in this series would have been depicted as real teenagers with evolving identities and relationships. However, this pitch was firmly rejected by both 4Kids and Peter Laird, leading to the development of Back to the Sewer. Several titles were considered for the 7th season, including Back to the Sewer, Cybernauts, Return of the Shredder, Shredder Rising, Splinter Quest, The Search for Splinter, Overdrive, CyberQuest, War of the Shredders, Shredder Apocalypse, Cyberdrive, Mutant Overdrive, and Revenge of the Shredder. War of the Shredders was excluded because that plot was planned for an 8th season. Ultimately, Lloyd Goldfine and Peter Laird agreed that Back to the Sewers was the only title that didn't make them puke. For the 25th anniversary, 4Kids and Mirage produced the Turtles Forever movie, which would have brought back the Shredder to tell the War Saga during the 8th season. However, with the sale of the Turtles to Viacom and Nickelodeon's decision to start their own series, the show was cancelled, and the movie served as the final chapter in the 2003 universe. Fans, still intrigued by the Shredder War saga, have since created a fan project named TMNT Shredder Wars, which is still in publication. To be honest, I found the unproduced episodes mostly entertaining, and in some cases even more intriguing than many from the last 2 seasons. Perhaps if we had considered them as an extension of the 6th season, rather than a standalone season, they could have seen the light of day. At the same time, reintroducing characters a century into the future posed significant narrative challenges once the Turtles returned to the present. What do you think? Would it have been exciting to see the Triceratron in action? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you in the sewers.